Her true story. From Washington. I drove 11 hours through a rainstorm to surprise my daughter on her birthday. I walked in with her favorite cake and saw her toasting her real mom. She called it a private dinner. I called it unforgettable. Not sure if she's on her way yet, the woman said, voice dripping with ease. The biggest gift she could give you is that massive life insurance payout. I'm your real mother, owning that role officially. If you've ever been hurt by family, leave a 5 so she knows she's not the only one. I pressed my back into the cool wood of the door, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The screen illuminating in my trembling hand. The rain lashed so hard it sounded like a sledgehammer on shingles, each drop a cold reminder of the miles I'd driven, the storms I'd endured. In my other hand, I held the chocolate birthday cake. Soft icing smudging into my palm. Its weight heavier than I'd expected, as if it carried all the love and memories of our shared years. Through the narrow crack in the door, I heard her voice. My daughter's. Light and casual, accompanied by the clipped confidence of another woman's laughter. A chill ran down my spine when I realized with absolute clarity that they were plotting something unspeakable. No thunder could match the coldness that swept through me. Their words were deliberate, practiced, cruel. They planned to wait until I was gone, until I couldn't watch them in this moment, and then step in to take my place. They spoke as if I were already invisible. They spoke as if I didn't matter. My breath caught in my throat. I swallowed hard, the knot of tears struggling behind my ribs, but I would not allow them to see me fall apart. Let them talk. Let them believe I would empty my hands and turn around at the first hurt. Let them think they'd won. I squeezed the phone tighter, forcing my fingers not to shake. I had to record every word, every cruel syllable evidence of betrayal. Proof that would stand when they tried to rewrite this night. The door behind me seemed to shrink, the laughter gathering and growing. They had created this private world, expecting it to be theirs without question. But I stood here, with a cake and a phone and a heart that refused to break. I reminded myself of who I was. I had driven 11 hours through relentless rain, past highways turned rivers, past roadside diners and empty gas pumps, just to see her smile. I had made that cake, carefully, with her favorite flavor and decorations she'd loved since she was 5. That cake was my gift, not a check, not a scrapbook message, but a living, breathing token of my love. And they thought that was nothing. I leaned in closer, pressing my ear to the door. The rain rattled and the laughter mixed with the click of champagne glasses. They were toasting the woman they called real mom. My daughter's laughter sounded hollow. Every chord of that emptiness stirred my resolve into flame. They were underestimating me. They had believed that distance or even death would be enough to push me out. Instead, I was here, alive, present, holding a cake and a camera and a piece of my heart. They could toast champagne in their private world, but I held the truth in my hand. I backed away from the door and stepped into the corridor on the polished wood floor, still dampened by rain, tracked in through the entrance. My heart pounded with every step. The air reeked faintly of spilled champagne and bright candle wax. I told myself, I am not asking permission. I am claiming a right. I stopped just outside the room. I took a deep breath, tasting rain and hope and determination all at once. The cake was heavy, but I kept my grip steady. My fingers tapped recorded confirmation onto the cake box, all the while angled toward their conversation. I held the phone at chest height, ready to pull it up and show it to a waiter, a manager, to anyone who would witness this injustice. Tears had not yet come. The lock of my jaw meant there was still steel in me. I knew that they expected my silence. They expected me to look silly, to catch a few photos and slip away. But I would not slip away. Tonight, I would do something unforgettable. I inhaled deeply, muscles coiling in my shoulders. My mind whispered, "You are a mother. You are a truth teller. You are not invisible." And then, with cautious resolve, I took one final step forward. I would walk in, cake in hand, phone ready. Let them see that a mother's love could never be canceled by cruelty. Let them hear the apology in my voice, but also the authority in my presence. I flicked the phone's recording light on one more time and stepped through the doorway. They would never forget this night, and neither would I. Before we start, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Try to watch the videos as long as possible. By watching more often, YouTube will promote these stories to a larger audience, grow your channel, and bring you more interesting things. Let's start now. Once, a bolt struck too close, illuminating semis frozen before me. My grip tightened, but I pressed on. All I felt was that I had to reach her, or I might turn around. The drive was both crucible and renewal. Near the border, the rain transitioned to sleet. Ice glazed the windshield. I slowed down. Visibility dropped. One of my tires skated across a slick patch. My heart thudded. I steadied the wheel. Every mile felt like a trial. I had to survive to claim my place. Finally, the lights of Portland appeared, glowing soft through ice-streak glass. My GPS said, "Destination ahead." I pressed through one final overpass, rain thinning as I turned into the hotel driveway. Cars passed too close, fenders glinting. I took a cleansing breath. I stepped out into sleet, coat pulled tight. Ice clung to my hair. I carried the cake box, phone tucked inside my coat. I squinted at the hotel entrance lights, shimmering through rain. My footsteps echoed against the marble floor as I crossed the lobby. Head turned. I saw the restaurant's door. Inside, candles shone on tables. Laughs rang like bells. I stopped, heart racing. There was her table. I looked at my soaked shoulders and cake in hand. I felt chilled but determined. I straightened my back. I held my gaze steady. I was no longer driving through storms for a girl who didn't want me. I drove for the woman I was and for the daughter I loved, whether she saw it or not. I took that last step forward into the restaurant, eyes locked ahead, cake cradled firmly. They would see me enter, and I would kill them with love and truth. I stepped through the glass doors of the restaurant, and a rush of warmth met me, a world away from the freezing rain outside. Water dripped from my coat, pooling at my feet. But I didn't notice. All I could see was that small table tucked into the corner, the only spot not fully lit, where my daughter sat with another woman by her side. Every heartbeat sounded in my ears as I walked the length of the polished floor toward them. Beyond the entrance, the restaurant's grand chandelier scattered pale light across white tablecloths and crystal glassware. Servers moved gracefully, gliding among tables framed by flickering candles. The air was filled with muted laughter and soft music, incongruent with the storm still raging beyond these walls. But that gentle ambience hid something far colder. As I neared, I saw them lifting glasses of champagne. Its pale bubbles caught the candlelight as they gently hovered around the rim. I recognized the way my daughter's lips curled in a practiced smile. So practiced, she'd done it for strangers 100 times. And then there was her companion, medium hit, slim, with stark dark hair and an air of self-importance I didn't like. I recognized that face immediately. She was young, a second mother my daughter had chosen over me. They laughed, a brief glint of malice in the woman's eyes when I appeared in the doorway. My daughter's laugh froze. She blinked. My presence caught them off guard, not because they hadn't expected me, but because they hadn't expected me to arrive this quickly, or at all. I paused for only a second in the doorway, long enough to place the cake on my other arm. My grip tightened around it as I took in their faces. I did not look startled. I did not have tears in my eyes. I did not shrink. I reminded myself who I was, what I had endured, and why I was here. Their smiles faltered. The room suddenly felt smaller, every other guest fading into the background. I watched as my daughter's eyes flicked away, uncertain and wary. The other woman's posture tensed, her shoulders pulled back. Her glass raised a hair higher, deflecting my gaze with a practiced brightness. I stepped forward. The floor beneath my boots seemed heavy, as if aware of the gravity of this moment. With slow deliberation, I set the cake box down between them, my gloved hand brushing the edge of the table. The aroma of chocolate and frosting rose to meet me, along with the charged silence that followed. No one spoke at first. The 1,000 treble light buzz above us seemed to dim, as if the restaurant itself held its breath. The daughter's glass hovered midair. The other woman's hand froze. My eyes met my daughter's. No tears there, but a storm of emotion behind her pupils. The woman whispered something to my daughter, pointing at me as if I were a problem to be contained. But I didn't flinch. I was not going anywhere. I had already driven through hell for this moment and for this daughter. I stood tall. I heard the faint scratching of a chair being pulled back. The restaurant noise resumed, plates clinking, forks on dishes. But my world was smaller now. I felt every heartbeat echoing in my chest as I waited for someone to speak first. I cleared my throat softly, and the word escaped like a small bell ringing in the hush. "Hello," I said. My voice was calm, steady, and measured. "You were toasting your real mother. I thought I'd remind you both who I am." I gestured toward the cake. "I made this, from scratch. For you." I watched them react. The woman's face paled. My daughter's mouth parted. The air between us crackled as if struck by lightning. I didn't cry. If anything, I felt a strange calm. The storm was not only outside, it had broken inside me, too. But I had survived. I tucked the phone into my coat pocket. The recording was there. Every laugh, every toast had been captured. Every betrayal, logged. I took a slow breath and repeated, louder this time, "This is a birthday cake, not a gift bag, not an insurance check, a cake." Their silence was the answer. This room, built for warmth, now stood on the edge of ice, and I was the one who brought the heat. In that moment, I saw what had changed. I no longer needed their permission to be here. I belonged by action alone, by heart alone, by presence alone. The cake between us marked the beginning of a reckoning. Not with raised voices, not with accusations, but with truth. Simple as flour, eggs, sugar, chocolate, and love. One breath, one decision, one entrance, and the night would never be the same. I had arrived. The restaurant's soft clinking and low hum seemed to dim the moment I pressed play. The video still glowed in my hand, just enough light to cast faint reflections on their faces. My daughter's grip around the champagne glass loosened. The woman next to her stiffened like a statue suddenly struck. On the video, their voices cut through the hum. The camera wavered. Mine was shaking in my wrist, but I kept it trained on them. Every moment a weapon in silence. So after she finishes the cake and dashes out, she'll think it was a heart attack, the woman said, her tone clinical, like discussing the weather. Brake lines already loosened. Accident to look natural? My stomach twisted. The words landed on the banquet table like a bomb. Their private birthday dinner had a far darker script. My daughter's eyes widened. The candlelight caught the tear forming. But she blinked it away fast. The woman looked triumphant until the phone's light revealed her pale face and wide eyes. Their triumphant facade broke. I pressed pause. Silence roared louder than thunder. Every head in the restaurant turned toward our corner. Servers stopped mid-serve. Diners paused mid-bite. My heart thundered with mine. I felt like a conductor of this immense hush. They looked at me, then at the phone, then back to me. The scales shifted. I watched as reality descended upon them. Betrayal exposed. Intentions laid bare. The woman attempted to smile, self-assured. "Mom, no, I mean, this doesn't mean what you think." She trailed off. My daughter's eyes were locked on mine. Confusion, fear, guilt. Everything swirling in that single glance. I stood straighter. I felt a shift beneath my skin. I was no longer the rejected mother awkwardly hovering at the edge. For an instant, every ounce of tension in that room paused. And I became the one in control. I didn't move the phone. I didn't babble accusations. I just held it up, slowly. The glow caught the sparkling wine bubbles, still intact in their glasses. Stark contrast to the betrayal just unveiled. "What you hear," I said steadily, "is conspiracy, insurance fraud, attempted murder." My words spelled the meaning. Gasps echoed around us. The woman stifled a gasp. My daughter looked like she might collapse. Somewhere, a single fork clattered against a plate. Breakfast napkins lifted on a breeze from air conditioning vents. But mostly, there was my voice, measured and true. "I came here with cake," I said, placing the ornate box down so gently it resembled a gift. "I didn't come here to bury secrets. I came to show up, with or without answers, with or without permission. I did not raise my voice. I didn't demand apologies. I let the evidence speak, and suddenly, the power in this room flipped like a switch. Suddenly, I was no longer the intruder. I was the bearer of truth. I could feel their panic transfer to the other tables. Phones slid out of pockets everywhere. People gathered for distance, but watched for consequence. The woman reached forward urgently. "This is private," she hissed behind her hands, then broke off when everyone turned toward her again. Nobody else spoke. My daughter stood, trembling. She looked at me, the real mother, and I saw the storm inside her. Shame, confusion, something like grief. I could have walked away, but a new thought took root. I didn't come this far to walk away. She should see me here, not vanished, not silenced. I stood toe to toe with her daughter across the table. Her eyes welled, but she didn't blink. I pointed to the cake. A birthday cake is the simplest, most honest gift. No tricks, no motives. I hope the flavor reminds you of my love. I paused again, calmly. The restaurant had turned into something else now. A courtroom, a gallery, a reckoning zone. Somewhere, a waiter tiptoed near us, uncertain what to do. I nodded at him, still holding the video phone steady. "Please don't delete this recording. It's the only proof I have. Proof that I didn't vanish. Proof that my daughter still needs a mother worth believing in." That the other diners shifted uncomfortably. The stolen celebration now tainted by conspiracy. Time slowed. My daughter's lower lip quivered. The woman beside her had gone pale, eyes sliding away. Then she stood. My daughter did the same. It was quiet, but the moment thundered. No sound of stirring, just the soft resonance of gravity rebalancing. The woman fled first, raising her phone as if prepared to erase something. My daughter followed her to the door, her shoulders hunched, footsteps dainty as if she might break them. I didn't follow. I stayed planted. I waited for the silence to fill in the cracks they'd left behind. The restaurant's crystal glasses rang an apology across the room. The waiters bowed their heads, maybe offering solidarity, maybe guilt. One of them offered me a Kleenex, mistaking tears. I shook my head no, smiled faintly, and didn't speak. I took a steady breath, bowed my head with grace, and gently scooped up the cake box. It was still intact. Still love. As I stepped forward, path cleared. The silence hung like a curtain behind me, charged, but no longer menacing. I had revealed their betrayal. I had changed the space from secret celebration to public revelation. I no longer needed their approval. They now needed mine. I took that cake. I held that video, and I turned toward the door, feeling lighter than I had at the start of this night. I'd survived the rainstorm of betrayal. Now I carried the storm's calm aftermath in my heart. I placed the chocolate cake firmly at the center of the small table, its smooth icing and perfumed roses catching the candlelight. The room's hush deepened as I sat down the box, its lid still closed like a declaration of presence. I lifted my eyes, meeting mine across the table with steady composure. My voice was calm, yet carried the weight of every mile, every insult, every stolen memory. I didn't come here tonight to claim any role because I already have one, I said, gently unclasping the cake lid. The camera in my pocket was recording silently. I didn't come seeking a replacement spot or looking for validation. I came because I am your mother. A subtle tremor passed through the room. My daughter's glass hovered before it shattered her illusion of control. Her so-called real mom stiffened, her lips parting as if to speak, but the room was not hers anymore. I reached behind me and stood. The candle above me flickered, and suddenly I appeared larger than I had felt all night. The cake, the gift, the gesture was more than pastry and icing. It was love remade into defiance. I raised my champagne glass carefully. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, voice soft but unwavering. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "Here's to you, always the reason I'm here. Not out of obligation, but because I love you, and that will never change. Even when doors close." Then I sipped. The champagne was crisp, and I tasted triumph with its bubbles. The guests around us watched, some murmuring support. Candles glowed anew. Even the woman beside my daughter drew in a shaky breath. My daughter's eyes glistened as recognition repelled through her confusion. She looked at me. Not the woman who'd been standing in her childhood photos, but the mother who'd driven through storms and betrayal to stand in front of her tonight. The other woman cleared her throat. "That's heartfelt," she said, her voice betraying nerves. "Really heartfelt." I chose not to respond. My heart softened, but I held my ground. I was not seeking an apology, though it would have been welcomed. I was giving my daughter a moment of truth and myself a moment of dignity. Slowly, a few guests at neighboring tables stood and clapped, quiet, respectful applause, acknowledging courage more than cake. 2 servers exchanged smiles of solidarity. The woman beside my daughter looked away, her confidence crumbling. My daughter's lips quivered. She raised her glass tentatively and followed me. "To Mom," she whispered. The words trembled and broke free, heavier than I expected. I said, I lifted my glass higher, face tipped softly toward her. "To a brave woman who knows the simplest gestures speak louder than any conspiracy," I said. She swallowed and drank. The gesture shifted the balance. I could feel the currents of power align with me now, rooted in maternal truth. The gradations of emotion were visible. Relief spilled over into her tear-soaked eyes. Shame flickered across the other woman's expression, and guests offered nods of approval. I took a deliberate bite of cake. It was rich, sweet, and real. The taste of every triumphant mile I'd traveled. A small piece, but it embodied everything, every memory, her childhood birthdays, the late-night lullabies, the countless kisses tucked at bedtime, streamed back into me. She reached forward and took my hand, damp from rain and nerves. The connection was electric. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. We shared the moment. 2 souls, mother and daughter, reclaiming something lost. Somewhere around us, soft murmurs turned into conversation. Someone whispered, "What a brave lady." Another shook her head in disbelief that such betrayal had been captured and such love reclaimed. My daughter looked at me fully, with true understanding. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." I nodded, swallowing thickness out of my throat. "I just want you. That's all." I smiled, and a slice of cake. She laughed, tears in her eyes, and reached for the cake with me. I let her serve herself a piece, then lifted her glass once more. "To forgiveness and to being seen," I said. She met my gaze, and we toasted in unison. The music in the restaurant softened, and someone from a nearby table began applause again, this time louder, joyful, affirming. Everything that came next felt lighter. Hugs, murmured apologies, tearful confession. When I finally turned, eyes met across the room, a community of strangers who had witnessed a mother reclaim her place. And in that moment, I wasn't invisible or erased. I was the lead in my own story, marked by courage, resilience, and unshakable love. The cake was still there, humbled now, elevated by what it represented, a mother's truth, publicly honored at last. I gently placed the remaining cake box on the small side table and stepped closer to the birthday table. My coat still dripped with rain, but I barely noticed the wetness against marbled floors. I squared my shoulders, heart steady. Tonight wasn't about trophies or vindication. It was about a simple truth. I was your mother, and I would not leave silently. I paused at the edge of the table and regarded both of them. My daughter trembling at the memory of shared meals and hugs through the years, and the woman who'd claimed whichever role I'd been erased from. I unrolled the ribbon around the cake box, and it fell away like a broken promise. The cake's rich aroma whispered of home, of love, of years of celebrations we'd once shared. I dove the cake server into the icing and cut a clean slice, the first one marked by sacred. I lifted the slice toward my daughter, then another toward the woman. For a moment, their bodies tensed, surprise flickering in their eyes, but I did not hesitate. "This birthday dinner is ours," I said, my voice soft yet crystalline, each word carefully measured. "Your special day, shared with your mothers. I'm here because I love you with all my heart, always." The cake rested on plates now, its warmth a gentle reminder that I belonged at this table. My daughter's fork shook as she took the piece. She didn't speak immediately. She just looked at the fork in her hand, then up at me, tears glistening. The other woman's hand hovered above her own plate, fragile as paper. For the first time in a long time, I saw her falter, unsure of how to respond. I took a deep breath and sat down at the chair between them, crossing my legs beneath the table. I kept from raising my voice, but carried the full weight of the moment in my posture, straight-backed, present, unflinching. Without a word, my daughter looked down at her cake slice, then at me. Tears formed again, smaller this time. She bit the cake, paused, and swallowed. The taste seemed to wash away years of pretense. I softened, offering her a small, reassuring smile. Not triumph, just love. The other woman shifted, her fingers grazing her plate, caught between admitting her place and acknowledging mine. The guests at surrounding tables watched quietly, their gazes gentle in solidarity. I felt a profound shift in the room's gravity. All pretense had dissolved. Only transparency remained. I placed my hand softly on my daughter's. I know things are different now, but as your mother, I want nothing more than to celebrate today with you in honesty and respect. Her lips quivered, and she nodded, voice small. Mom. The other woman rose, her glass raised awkwardly. Happy birthday, she whispered to my daughter. Her voice shook. Apologies simmering beneath. No words of confrontation followed, only the quiet clinking of forks and the soft hum of the restaurant's restored warmth. We ate together, slowly, rebuilding a connection, one bite at a time. With each taste of cake, I tasted forgiveness and softness returning. I caught my daughter's eyes. I saw relief and regret, but also something new, the spark of recognition. She saw me now, not just as her mother, but as a woman of strength and dignity. I nodded once, assuring her silently. It's okay. We finished our slices. A moment later, she leaned across the table and hugged me without hesitation. I didn't pull away. I held her close, feeling years of distance melt into something tender. The restaurant's overhead lights reflected softly off her hair as we embraced in front of everyone. It was not a private moment anymore. It was our reclaiming of what had almost lost its light. Somewhere nearby, a server stepped forward and offered 2 glasses of sparkling water. My daughter raised them with me in a quiet toast. To us, she whispered. I lifted my glass softly. My heart soared with a quiet joy. To us. I repeated, in that gentle clink. I felt a reckoning settled, not with force or anger, but with love and presence. My pride was resurrected, not tarnished by betrayal, but fortified by forgiveness. We leaned back and continued our meal with the cake as our centerpiece. I didn't speak again. I didn't need to. Every gesture, every bite, every tear and smile bridged a gap too long yawning. I had returned to reclaim my dignity, and now it shimmered between us at the birthday table. Beneath the soft glow of candles, I allowed myself a moment of peace. I had faced the storm, confronted their betrayal, and I stood here, my dignity reborn, celebrating the woman I raised. The air in the restaurant felt warmer now, as if acknowledging the quiet justice done. I sat between my daughter and the woman who existed as usurper that night, and I did not shrink. I belonged, I mattered, and I had faith again that love could do what words alone could not. The birthday dinner continued, but nothing was the same. I had delivered my truth, reclaimed my place, but more importantly, I had reminded myself and surely reminded her that a mother's love never leaves the table. I felt the warmth before I heard the applause, a ripple rolling through the restaurant as I sat down beside my daughter. A few plates clattered as hands stopped mid-reach. Then soft, respectful claps began. One table of senior patrons nodded in support. A couple at a nearby table shared a meaningful glance. Even the servers paused, their eyes reflecting a quiet solidarity. I placed my fork down and allowed their acknowledgement to wash over me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I leaned closer to my daughter and whispered, "You're still my daughter, always." Her eyes glistened as she nodded, lips trembling. I squeezed her hand and she gave a small, grateful smile. The cake's fragrance swirled through us, a testament to all our shared birthdays, past, present, and hopefully future. The other woman, the one who had toasted me, yassed as a threat, stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. She looked around, saw the crowd's support, and then slipped quietly from the table. She didn't make eye contact with me or my daughter as she left. Her presence evaporated like smoke. The birthday dinner had shed its final hostage. The restaurant spotlight shifted back to us. The servers circled the table bearing a small, candlelit cake topper that read, "Happy Birthday." My daughter inhaled sharply and nodded. We leaned in together, hands steady and intertwined. Time slowed as she closed her eyes and made a wish. I watched her, tears wet at the corners of my eyes. When we blew across the candlelight, the soft glow flickered, a symbol of a fragile but hopeful mending. I carved a small piece of cake for each of us, my daughter, and for me, a slice of resilience. As I placed our plates before us, another gentle round of applause drifted through the room. I met my daughter's gaze and whispered once more, "I'm here now." She smiled, real and unguarded, all around. Life in the dining room resumed. Laughter, joy, soft music blending into a backdrop of renewal. But in our corner, an irrevocable shift had occurred. Words had been spoken, truth had been revealed, and sitting side by side, cake shared between us, I realized we had crossed a boundary we'd never cross back. In that quiet moment, surrounded by gentle clapping and understanding eyes, I understood. Tonight, we had reclaimed more than a birthday. We had reclaimed trust, presence, and the quiet dignity of a mother's unrelenting love. I stepped out onto the small wooden deck behind the restaurant, the summer evening breeze salty against my skin. The sky bled vibrant shades of crimson and gold as the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in a farewell I've seen only here, where water meets sky. The gentle rhythm of waves against the rocky shoreline sounded like a slow heartbeat, echoing mine. My daughter followed, wrapping her arms around me from behind. I turned to see her head resting lightly on my shoulder, and I squeezed her hand. She didn't speak. Words weren't needed. The hum of the restaurant carried through the sliding doors behind us. But out here, the evening held only peace. I had entered tonight under the weight of betrayal, drenched, holding cake in one hand and truth in the other. I had been poised under the storm's assault, my heart heavy with their dismissal, my grip doubled down on faith. I had endured laughter at my expense, felt the sting of being replaced, and stood witness to their plotting under the thin veil of celebration. But I drove through wind and rain to reclaim what a few words couldn't erase. I stood under noise and candlelight to affirm that I am still here, not as a prop or a memory, but as a living, breathing mother. I walked through that door to honor every birthday we had shared, and every silent promise I made in the nights I stayed up worrying over her, holding her through growing pains and heartbreaks. On that deck, as dusk settled into twilight, we watched the horizon together, and it felt like the afterglow of something sacred. She tucked a stray hair behind my ear, softly, as though steadying the years we'd lost. I closed my eyes and took a steadying breath, tasting renewal in the salt air. She did the same. The day had been more than a boiteux, an unexpected show of defiance, but also of grace. I had placed cake on that table, not out of ego, but out of love, an offering that sliced through pretense and revealed the heart beneath. I had whispered that simple truth. I am your mother, and let the cake speak the rest. She found me after, waves in her voice. Thank you. I nodded. Always, I said, and she squeezed my hand again. We faced the ocean, the day's battles washed behind us, the promise of a new morning before us. We had reclaimed the room. We had reclaimed each other. We had shown anyone watching that no power, no betrayal, no lie can dim the bond between mother and child when it is rooted in honesty, sacrifice, and enduring love. The sun slipped beneath the waves and stars began to pierce the sky. My daughter and I stood shoulder to shoulder watching the first ones appear, bright as small beacons against indifferent darkness. I took her hand and said softly, no matter what storms come, we walk toward the light together. She nodded, eyes reflecting that distant shimmer. And in that moment, I realized, though the night had tested us, it had also broken the silence and reclaimed our place together at the table of honor. I had entered seeking permission. I left knowing that no permission was necessary. I turned to her and whispered my parting lesson. Even when we are cast aside, we still have the power to step into our own light. She smiled, and I knew we both understood. The horizon didn't just mark sunset, it marked renewal, and I realized I had walked into the light of my own worth with my daughter by my side. And finally, that was enough. If this story resonated with something buried deep inside you, if you've ever felt invisible in the very rooms you helped build or been pushed aside by those you once carried, then remember this. Dignity does not fade with age and love. Real love stands its ground even in the face of betrayal. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the truth, and I stood still long enough for it to echo. If you believe in the strength of women who do not shout but remember, if you believe every mother deserves to be seen and not just served, then you're already part of this porch we're building together. Subscribe to Grandma, True Stories, because some stories are not fiction. They're confessions from the quietest woman in the room, and she's finally ready to speak.